is free to rise as far as he's willing or able, but the degree to which he thinks will determine the degree to which he'll rise.
All that we are is the result of what we have thought. The mind is everything. What we think, we become.
It isn't what you have, or who you are, or where you are, or what you are doing that makes you happy or unhappy. It's what you think about.
As a man thinketh, so is he.
Human beings don't have 4 rows of razor-sharp teeth. We can't bite through steel. We can't secrete poison from the glands on the end of our fingers. Can't see in the dark. We can't run 75 miles an hour, and we can't change the color of our skin to match our environment. We don't have claws. We don't have tusks. We don't have wings. We're human beings. And that means our basic tool of survival is our mind. It's our intellectual capabilities that define us as a species. It's our ability to think that keeps us alive. Everything we have in our civilization, medicine, shelter, sanitation, farming, computers, the chair you're sitting on, the clothes I'm wearing, everything that makes our lives better, safer, or easier was brought into existence by a process of thinking. For human beings, it's about what we have between our ears. This is the reason we're here. But there's a very interesting complication. Thinking is a choice. It doesn't happen automatically. We can choose to think or not to think. We can choose to face an issue or not face it. We can choose to focus on solving a problem or not bother. I mean, we are not obligated to monitor the beating of our heart. That happens automatically. We don't have to focus on our body temperature or the function of our internal organs. But when it comes to thinking, nature has given us an extraordinary responsibility. In just about any situation, we can make our consciousness brighter or dimmer. We have the choice to think or not to think. And choosing to think is only half the battle. The other half is choosing what to think about. What we choose to focus on is incredibly important because thoughts become things. Everything we're surrounded by started out as a thought. Every great work of art, every building, every invention, everything in our entire civilization was brought into existence through a process of thinking. And in exactly the same way, everything in your life began with a thought and was brought into your reality by a process of thinking. Your education. Which school should I go to? Do I even want to go to school? Your relationships. Is this person really the right person for me for the rest of my life? Your career, your level of health and fitness, the house you live in, the goals you choose to pursue. Everything in your life began as a thought. Thoughts become things. What you think about expands, and it manifests in your reality. And we all manifest something. We're all creators of our own reality. The question is, are we creating our worlds consciously, or are we doing it by default? See, most people live their lives with their thoughts on autopilot, thinking just barely enough to get by. I mean, they still create their world through their thoughts, but if you live in a mental fog, floating like a piece of driftwood wherever the tide of life happens to take you, you're creating your world by accident. One of the most powerful concepts you could ever understand is this: you can take control of your thinking. You can begin thinking deliberately, guiding your thoughts and actions toward a clearly defined vision for your life. And if you do that, the things that you think about habitually are going to start to show up in your life, guaranteed. Now, the first step in this process is to lay the foundation by clarifying and articulating exactly what it is that you want your life to be like. Think through that vision for your ideal life. Picture yourself and your life exactly the way you'd like it to be. And that's what you're doing right now. Lifebook is a thinking process. This process allows us to focus our minds and think through our lives in a disciplined, deliberate way, which, as you'll see, is possibly the single most important activity we could ever engage in. It's what separates the Lifebook community from the people around us who are sleepwalking through their days, and it empowers us to create the extraordinary lives that we're in the process of designing for ourselves. So the next step on our Lifebook journey is our intellectual life, thinking. It goes to the very root of our survival on this planet and what it really means to be a human being. Missy and I were on a Lifebook trip in South Africa a few years ago. We were on a safari in Kruger National Park. It's an amazing place. We were with our kids and a wonderful group of Lifebook members. Kruger Park is one of the only national parks in Africa that tourists can actually drive through without a tour guide. And that year, there was a lady driving through that park. She came across a group of lion cubs in the bush. So she started taking pictures from her car, but she couldn't quite get the angle that she wanted. So she got out of the car in the wild South African bush, and literally she picked up these 3 little lion cubs and she lined them up so she could take a picture of them. And can you guess what happened next? The mother lion charged out of the bush and killed her. Here's the moral to that story. If you don't use your brain properly, you're not going to be around for very long. We all have the opportunity to do something incredibly stupid every single day of our lives. From crossing the street without looking, to ruining a relationship that's important to us by not thinking, to damaging our health and fitness by behaving poorly, to any other unconscious action that can mess up our lives or even end our lives in some extreme cases. When I think about some of the crazy, stupid stuff that I've done in my life, and I just thank my lucky stars that I got a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th chance. I'm sure we can all say that, right? And on the other hand, using your intelligence correctly is absolutely the key to enjoying that ideal life that you really want to live. Your intelligence is the primary tool that you will use to navigate toward the life vision that you're in the process of creating. That's how high the stakes are in this category. Ultimate failure or ultimate victory right here in your grasp in the intellectual category. So as we start to think about the premise for our intellectual life, let's remember, these beliefs that we'll define are going to influence our thoughts and actions from this point forward. So you really want to make sure they're empowering. This is really important stuff. I want to start by sharing my foundational beliefs in this category with you. I've got 4 beliefs in my Lifebook that make up the premise for my intellectual life. Here's the first one. My mind is my greatest asset. All my goals, all my dreams and aspirations rest on my ability to think in a high-quality way. So I really want to value my mind. I need to exercise it, I need to nurture it, I need to guard it, and I need to take care of it. Here's the second belief that makes up my intellectual premise. The greatest measure of true intelligence is how intelligently you live your life. To me, true intelligence isn't about an IQ test. It's not about an SAT score, grades in school, or anything like that. That's the way our culture tends to view intelligence, and I personally think it's way too narrow. I mean, what good is high intelligence if you're incapable of using it to make your own life better? Doesn't matter how smart you are, if your life is a wreck, How smart are you really? Living a successful, balanced, intelligent life in our modern culture is a highly complex task that requires deep thinking and continuous right action. When you see a person living that way, you can know that you're looking at a great accomplishment. You're looking at a really smart person there. True intelligence means living intelligently. Here's the third belief in my intellectual premise. I can choose to think, and I can choose what to think about. Again, choice, self-empowerment, self-responsibility. It's a massively recurring Lifebook theme that you're going to encounter in every single Lifebook category. As human beings, we can choose to think or not. And I choose to think. And I also choose what I want to think about. And I can't control all the events in my outer world, but I certainly can control my inner world. I can be purposeful with my thinking. I can manage my thoughts, thinking deliberately and guiding my thoughts and actions toward a clear image of my ideal future. Which brings me to my next belief. What I think about is what I'll bring about, because thoughts become things. What I think about over and over absolutely programs itself into my nervous system and into my subconscious. And it is what I will create and what I will experience in my life. It's what I'll become. It's almost like casting a magic spell on myself. And by the way, that spell can be good or it can be bad. Most people understand at some level that you can make yourself sick with your thoughts, or you can make yourself well with your thoughts. Just depends on what you think about and how you think about it. Your Lifebook will be the best tool you could ever have for focusing your thinking and manifesting what you want in your life. You're in the process of thinking through every important area of your life right now, defining it, illustrating it, and then you're going to be living with it. You're going to be flooding yourself with it on a daily basis. Over time, you're going to be able to use this tool to make your life vision so clear, so powerful, that it will eventually become a self-fulfilling prophecy, and the vision and the reality will become one. And now, let's turn to the wisdom of the Lifebook community. Here are some powerful intellectual premise statements from Lifebook members worldwide. I nurture my mind like a beautiful garden, weeding and removing what doesn't serve me to keep it flourishing. My consciousness is a miraculous gift. I can figure out anything using my creative and resourceful mind. Like a supercomputer, my mind is so powerful, it can overwhelm past negative patterns and imprint new, positive, forward-thinking ideas. I am free to perceive myself in any way I choose, and what I'm aware of, I have the power to change. My intelligence is deeply rooted in my emotions and my spirituality. Staying plugged into the earth and in tune with creation is where my wisdom springs from. I am curious by nature. Thinking comes natural to me. I love living consciously. My mind is a powerful force that creates exactly what I want, as long as I don't get in the way. I am the authority in terms of what I think and how I think. My mind can improve any aspect of my existence. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. So what do you believe about your intellectual life? What does true intelligence mean to you? Do you believe that your mind is an incredible, irreplaceable asset? Do you believe that your thoughts create your world? Do you believe that you can control your thoughts? If some of these beliefs work for you, then feel free to adopt them as yours. And if not, throw them out and replace them with empowering beliefs that really make sense to you. Take a few moments right now, center yourself within your own truth, and define your premise, your foundational beliefs for your intellectual life. Some people have the self-image that they're not very smart, or while they may be adequately smart, they could never be highly intelligent. So when we talk about high intelligence, I just want to make sure that you're not thinking, he's not talking about me, because I'm definitely talking about you. Science has identified at least 10 different kinds of intelligence, and most schools only focus on and measure 3 or 4 at most. Most people have real gifts in one or more of these 10 plus areas, but the challenge is that school only focuses on a few of them, so many people never really discover their true intelligence in school. Now remember, I believe that the best single indicator of true intelligence is how intelligently you live your life, so I know that the Lifebook process will literally make you more intelligent, a lot more intelligent, because it will help you live more intelligently, which as far as I'm concerned is the very definition of the word. The Lifebook process is intelligence in action. Right now, you are doing deep thinking about the best thing you could ever think about, your own life. It's more important than any math problem, any science experiment, any test you've ever taken. And in my book, that makes you smarter than 99% of the people I know outside of the Lifebook community. I mean, how many people do you know outside of this community that have taken the time to think deeply about who they really are, what they believe, what they want in their life, and why they want it? 0 maybe? Outside the Lifebook program? You are smart as hell for just being here right now. And you're going to get smarter with each passing day as you use your Lifebook to manifest the life you really want to live. So let's go into the vision section of the intellectual life category with a clear understanding that you are a very intelligent person on your way to becoming even more intelligent. Deal? Okay, I'd like to share my vision for my own intellectual life with you right now. It basically comes down to 4 things. Here's the first. I am a highly intelligent person. I trust my mind. I make good decisions. I'm competent to cope with the basic challenges of life. I've got confidence in this area of my life. And I've worked hard to develop my intellectual powers. I live smart, and that makes me smart. Second, I will constantly improve my intellectual capabilities from here. I'll highly value and consciously develop my ability to think and my ability to reason. I want to increase the content and the ability of my mind, so I've got to dedicate myself to a life of never-ending intellectual improvement and education. I really see myself developing immense intellectual momentum over the next decade or so. I'm absolutely committed to learning things that will make my life better in every way. I want to fill my mind with positive, empowering thoughts on an ongoing basis. And I also want to guard against negative, limiting thoughts. I don't put garbage into my body. I will not put garbage into my mind. Third, I'll use my intellect to live an intelligent life. Now that means not only making a commitment to learning the things that are going to make my life better, but actually using those things, applying them to my life. I want to be 12 categories smart. I want to excel in all areas of my life. And I want to be an inspirational example to others. So I intend to use my mental abilities to identify real-world problems and help solve them so that I can help the people around me and make the world a better place. And the number one way I can do all this is to build out and bond with my Lifebook, because my Lifebook is a tool that I use to clarify and organize all that thinking into an efficient, useful, productive system that's going to propel my life forward every single day. Let's turn to the wisdom of the Lifebook community now. Here are some beautiful intellectual vision statements from Lifebook members worldwide. I am an intelligent, brilliant person. I'm able to articulate, share, and inspire others. I can fearlessly carry a conversation with people of high caliber. I will manifest the very best of what I think so that the world is better for our children. I will direct my thoughts in ways that serve my family and our world. I feed my thirst for knowledge. I'm continually growing and learning, always expanding my mind and my thoughts, and applying what works to make my life better. I consistently make excellent choices. I'm always gracious in my judgment, and I make sure I have all the information possible before making decisions. I practice mind control. I don't allow negative, pointless lines of thinking. I just refuse to go down those roads. I enjoy studying to expand my intelligence. It's easy and a joy for me to apply what I learn, to live my life as intelligently as possible. I am grateful for the people who came before me that have made my life so abundant with the thinking they have done. I get what I focus on. I single-mindedly focus on achieving my goals, and I use my Lifebook as a guiding tool for clarity. I will think deeply and consciously about every aspect of my life, so my life is carefully crafted for and chosen by me. So what is your vision for your own intellectual life? How do you see yourself in this area? How high can you get yourself to raise the bar? Don't worry about how you're going to achieve this vision right now. Just think about what your ideal intellectual life would actually look like. I mean, can you see yourself as being a highly intelligent person? Do you want to really expand your intellectual powers over the coming years? Can you see yourself learning more and more for the rest of your life? Do you want to learn to take control of your thinking? And what are you willing to commit to right now? Take a few moments and define your ideal vision for your intellectual life. used to be that all you needed was a college degree and you could enter the workforce and stay employed for life. But today, the sum total of human knowledge is expanding exponentially. It's doubling and doubling and doubling again every few years. Welcome to the post-information age. If you don't dedicate yourself to a life of continuous learning, there's no question you're going to be left behind. The refusal to think can ruin a career. If you don't allow yourself to notice how things are changing in the world around you and commit to learning the things that you need to know, you're going to be outdated. But if you make a commitment to think, to pay attention, and to learn, you'll constantly improve, and your chances of success are going to be greatly enhanced. Refusal to think, to pay attention, to learn, can ruin a marriage. Your spouse tells you the same thing over and over for 5 years. This really bothers me. This is a problem. But you don't pay attention. You don't think about it. You don't handle it. Then one day you wake up and your spouse isn't there anymore, and you wonder why. Bringing consciousness to your love relationship, paying attention, noticing what's going on around you, thinking about it, and making intelligent choices. This can make the difference between success and failure in a marriage, or in any category of life for that matter. This is a big reason to take this category seriously. It's a big why. When I think about my purpose for the intellectual category, it's very simple but very powerful. The better I think, the better my life will be, period. In order to achieve my life vision, I've got to learn to think as effectively as I possibly can. If I'm able to bring a high enough quality of intellect to bear on my goals, I know I'm going to be able to manifest everything I want in my life. I believe that the more consciousness I'm able to shine on my life, the more consciously I'll live my life, and therefore the better my life will be. In other words, the reason I want to manifest my intellectual vision is so that I can get everything I want out of my life. I truly believe that my intelligence has the ability to get me there. And I believe exactly the same thing about you. It's your intelligence that's going to make the realization of your life vision possible. Well, that's a pretty powerful purpose, isn't it? I don't know about you, but a purpose like that really energizes me and gives me the fuel that I need to roll up my sleeves and take this category seriously. Let's hear some wisdom from the Lifebook community now. Here are some intellectual purpose statements from Lifebook members worldwide. My intellectual purpose is to live my life in the best way possible and to be the best me I can for myself, our family, and the world. I create my life on purpose. I love thinking about what I desire with great purpose. Using my intellect on purpose has caused me to become rich, enlightened, healthy, and fulfilled. My intelligence defines my values. It allows me to make better decisions and be a more reliable person to my friends and family. My wisdom allows me to teach and guide my children and everyone I know with wise, intelligent advice that is in their best interest. Whatever I produce out of life is the result of my first decision. That is, to consciously think. When I break down my programming from society, childhood, TV, newspapers, and schooling, and replace it with my own vision, my own thinking, my own choices, my own decisions, my own character, my own voice, then my life begins. I will use my intelligence to create inspiration, solve mysteries, and to imagine stories and songs. My desire is to become an ambassador of wisdom and shine love and light. By creating a conscious life, I can create an extraordinary life. So what are the deepest, most compelling reasons you can think of for achieving your life vision? in the intellectual category. Look, in order for you to achieve this vision, you're going to have to dedicate time and energy and effort to it. It's going to take some work. So why is it worth it to you? What are the specific reasons that make you want to spend the time and do the work to make your intellectual life the best it can possibly be? What are you going to get if you're able to manifest your vision? And what will you lose if you don't? Take a few minutes now and define the purpose for your intellectual life. I grew up in an unintelligible world of mysticism, contradiction, and sometimes legitimate craziness. As a child, I was never taught the laws of logic, rules of evidence, or the concept of critical thinking. I mean, who is? Most of us aren't, right? So even though I was a smart kid who took ideas seriously, I was never intellectually grounded. I had no rational foundation, no well-defined strategy for distinguishing between good ideas and bad ideas, which is probably why I was involved in so many bad ideas as a teenager. Well, all that changed when I was 20 years old, and I discovered Carl Sagan's Cosmos, which is my first real experience with the concept of the scientific method. And for the first time in my life, I had the mind-expanding, totally life-changing realization that the universe is a knowable place that operates under certain laws that we can actually identify and understand. We can discover these natural laws through careful observation. We can explore them through experimentation, and we can apply what we learn to our lives and to the world around us so as to gain a higher level of mastery over ourselves and over our own existence. As human beings, we're capable of using the minds that we've been given to control our state of affairs. We can understand the universe and our place in it, exercise control over our own existence, and not only survive, but thrive in every area of human endeavor. We can't know everything, but we can know some things with certainty, and that makes all the difference. The difference between survival and non-survival. The difference between order and chaos. The difference between a lousy life and an extraordinary life. So as we begin to explore potential strategies for our intellectual life, one of the best places to start is with the concept of logic. Because logic is the mechanism we use to understand our universe. It reveals what is true and what is not true. Learning the rules of logic allows you to use your own intelligence to decide if something is right or wrong for you, instead of blindly accepting the values of your preachers, your teachers, your parents, and the culture you're surrounded by. And how important is that to living the life that you really want to live? How important is that to your career, to your health and fitness, to your character, to your love relationship? That's what the intellectual category is all about. And yet, we rarely see the rules of logic being taught to our children in our modern culture, which is why most kids today don't have a rational process to help them distinguish between good ideas and bad ideas. I mean, they taught the laws of logic to kids in ancient Greece 2,600 years ago, but we don't teach it to our kids in the modern world. We take it totally for granted. How crazy is that? One of my earliest and most effective intellectual strategies was to learn and apply, to the greatest extent I could, the laws of logic, reason, and rationality to my life. And if this strategy resonates with you, I highly suggest you consider it, because these laws are the basis of all human understanding. If you haven't heard of them before, it could be life-changing for you to check them out. And if your kids haven't heard of them before, overtly and specifically, you may consider learning them and sharing them with your kids. Logic is a tool that reveals truth. It helps you differentiate between ideas that make sense and ideas that don't make sense, which is a great skill to have because all ideas are not created equal. 1 + 1 = 17 is a bad idea. That is incorrect thinking. It's demonstrably false. And if you're going to design and manufacture a jet plane using the premise of 1 + 1 = 17, remind me not to fly on your airline, ever. 1 + 1 = 2, that's a solid idea. You can test it and it'll hold up every time. It'll get you far in life. It's that type of thinking that got us to the moon, that raised our cities up out of the ground, that got agriculture figured out, and pulled human beings out of poverty and suffering in every corner of the globe. Unfortunately, we tend to tolerate bad ideas more than we probably should because we just don't have enough reverence for the truth. We've been taught for so long to treat everyone's ideas with equal weight that we don't even know how to ask the questions that would expose some positions as preposterous or insulting to our intelligence or totally unworthy of repetition. Look, the stakes are so high here. I mean, if we're operating under a false premise, it can totally derail the extraordinary life that we're working to create for ourselves. For instance, if you've got an aspiration to be wealthy because you really want to create a higher quality of life for yourself, but you are taught at an early age that all wealthy people are evil, which is a totally incorrect premise. If you are taught that the love of money is the root of all evil, and the only way that you can enrich yourself financially is by taking from others instead of giving to others, and you never dealt effectively with that false premise, you got a contradiction in your life. Something doesn't add up. And as Ayn Rand said, contradictions lead to destruction. It doesn't matter how sound your financial strategies are. That internal contradiction in your life is likely going to have a destructive effect on your financial goals. Or say that you want to create a fantastic love relationship. It's really one of your most important goals. But deep down, you just don't feel worthy of being loved. I mean, deep down, you believe that your partner is eventually going to leave you. Well, that faulty premise, that contradiction in your life, is undoubtedly going to have a destructive effect on your love relationship. Or say that you want to get in excellent physical shape, and you do some research, you define your strategy, you're totally committed to achieving it this time. You're going to do it for real. But deep down inside, you're holding on to a premise that you're destined to be overweight because your entire family is fat. And what right do you have to be healthy and happy when the people around you that you love aren't? Well, that tension between your goal and this lousy, negative, disempowering belief is almost surely going to derail your health and fitness strategy. And even if you somehow manage to get in good shape for a while, the gravitational pull of that dissonant, incorrect premise is eventually going to undo all the good work you've done. Now, these examples aren't near as obvious as an incorrect mathematical formula, like 1 + 1 = 17. I mean, human emotions are infinitely more complex than that, but the principle still holds. If there is a rational contradiction in your life, it will keep the equation from adding up to the result that you want in any category. You need a tool that allows you to recognize good ideas versus bad ideas, empowering beliefs versus disempowering beliefs, to help you uncover contradictions and get to the truth. So one of my most important intellectual strategies has always been to cultivate a deep respect and even a reverence for logic, reason, and rationality, because they're the main tools that I use to navigate through life. If this strategy resonates with you, I'd love to see you adopt it as your own and start down this amazingly empowered path. Okay, let's take a look at a few more solid intellectual strategies. This category is about thinking, and to me, the best and most practical thing that you could ever think about is your own life. So another intellectual strategy that you might want to adopt is to think deeply and deliberately about your own life. Simply carve out some time to thoughtfully consider what's happening in your life. I literally schedule about an hour or two every week to just walk around in nature and think about my life. Just reflect a little. Pay attention to what's working and what's not working. Ask yourself, am I getting closer or farther away from the life that I really want to live? Notice the results you're getting. Let outcome be your biggest teacher. Really pay attention. Live a thinking life. Now, as we know, life can be complicated, and most people wouldn't even know where to begin living a thinking life. There's just too much to think about. I mean, where do we even start? It can be confusing and it can be overwhelming unless you have a Lifebook. If you have a life book, you've got an organized structure to help you think about your life. You just take it chapter by chapter. In the morning with your coffee for, say, 15 minutes every day, or on a Saturday afternoon for a half hour or so. Maybe once a month, you could carve out a date for yourself and review and edit an entire chapter of your life book. Missy and I take a trip alone together every year, and we work on our life vision for an entire week. We've probably done that for 15 or 20 years in a row, and it's an amazing intellectual strategy. One of my most important intellectual goals is to work on my life book consistently, because that's thinking deeply and deliberately about everything that's important to me. Working on my life book is the way I do that without getting lost or overwhelmed. It's the number one action I can take to make myself smarter. So if you feel that same way, you could make working on your life book one of your most important intellectual goals. The next strategy I'm going to share with you has been a game changer in my life. Set aside at least 1 hour a day to study and learn. Now, this can consist of listening to an audio program, watching educational videos, reading trade magazines or books, or studying a subject on the internet. I can focus on any area I want. The subject matters less than my commitment to constant learning. Missy and I are always in the middle of a personal development program or an educational video series. This has been the way that we've formally educated ourselves as adults. I mean, it's an unbelievable day and age we live in, where you can go online and purchase a book or an audio program that has wisdom from the best of the best on how to live your life, whether it's in personal growth or finances or relationships or health and fitness or anything else. Whatever you need in life, wherever you want to improve, the information you need is out there. It's available to you, and most of it's free. So I've got a goal always to be in the middle of an educational program. It allows Missy and I to listen and learn at our own pace, and it's one of my favorite ways to bond with Missy because we're learning the same thing and we discuss what we learn together. And here's another great tip that we've used for decades. We listen to audiobooks or personal development programs while we're working out every day, so it literally takes no extra time in our lives. And we've listened to hundreds and hundreds of books and programs over the years like this. We absolutely love it. It kills two birds with one stone. It gets you smarter while getting you in shape. So that strategy is highly recommended. Here's another ultra-powerful intellectual strategy, probably one of the most important strategies of all. Spend time around smart people. Join a networking group. Get a mentor. Create a mastermind group with some of the peers that you really admire and respect. Spend more time with some people in the Lifebook community who know who they are and where they're going in life. King Solomon said, "He who walketh with wise men shall become wise." True story. Intelligence rubs off on you, so make it a point to spend time with some really smart people. Here's another great intellectual strategy. Seek out different points of view. If you're like most people, including me, most of what you read and watch justifies and reinforces your own opinions on life. See, what we do is we form opinions, and then we spend our entire lives seeking to validate what we already believe to be true. Well, I want to expand my thinking, so I try to read and watch stuff that has an entirely different point of view from mine, and I try to learn something, even if I don't agree with the position. That's guaranteed to make me smarter. Another great strategy that I've developed over the years is to pay attention to the ratio of intellectual input versus intellectual output. Reading, studying, listening to audio programs or listening to books, that's input going into your brain, and it makes you smarter. But the other side of the coin is intellectual output, using your brain to think, to write, to create, to work things out in your life. I love studying, but I also want to make sure that I'm not overdoing it, that I'm not consuming too much information and crowding out my own thoughts. Sometimes I like to go on a low information diet, especially when I'm in the middle of a creative or like a writing project. You can use your brain to absorb things and to learn, and you can also use your brain to create things and produce. So I really try to balance those two aspects of my intellect. You might want to do the same. And lastly, I'm going to share our very favorite intellectual strategy with you. As a matter of fact, this is probably our favorite overall strategy for living a 12-category smart life. It's going to show up in a lot of categories. World travel. It's our very favorite way to educate ourselves. Each and every new destination is an opportunity to learn more about history, religion, art, music, culture, architecture, politics, even food. And it's an education that you simply can't get in school because it's learning in 3D. And there is a big difference between reading about the Great Pyramids of Giza and standing at the base of the Great Pyramids of Giza after spending an afternoon experiencing the sights, smells, and sounds of ancient Cairo. You get to know a place. You get to know its people, its history, its traditions at a cellular level. It just becomes part of your life experience, making you more knowledgeable, more interesting, and more intelligent than you were before. As you're going to see, world travel is a strategy that shows up in category after category of this program. And now, let's turn to the wisdom of our amazing Lifebook community. Here are some great intellectual strategies from Lifebook members worldwide. I will surround myself with intellectually stimulating material and people. I will boost my beautiful brain power through nutrition, nourishing it with vitamins and nutrients to help it function at its best. I will think before I speak in conversations to make my contribution more meaningful. I will engage less in small talk, be insightful, commanding, and worth listening to. Clearing my mind every day is the key. Meditation keeps my mind uncluttered, focused, and tuned in so I am able to make clear and good decisions. I will read a book a month and attend personal development programs several times a year. I will practice thinking compassionately. I will put myself in another's shoes, experience what they must be experiencing, and think about how I would feel in their situation. I will settle fully into the present moment with all of its unknowable splendor. I will exercise the elimination of all negative thoughts. I will work on my Lifebook every week, read it, adjust it, add to it, and love it. Think about the vision that you created for your intellectual life, the mental image of the highly intelligent person you want to become in this category, and ask yourself, what is it going to take for me to achieve that vision? What do I need to do to make it happen? What actions are you willing to commit to? Take a few minutes now and define the strategy for your intellectual life.
You are today where your thoughts have brought you. You will be tomorrow where your thoughts take you.
Because of our passion for world travel, Missy and I have been able to see a lot of the world. We've been to more than 100 countries, and we don't just watch passively from a tour bus. We go deep into the culture. I've also been fascinated by world history ever since I was young. It's by far my favorite academic subject. I've studied it voraciously over the years. Because of these two things, travel and history, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that progress, prosperity, human inventions, the creation of wealth, in other words, the achievements of the mind, wipe out human suffering. The products of human intellect eradicate poverty, disease, despair, and hopelessness every day all over the globe. I mean, we couldn't even imagine what life was like in the 13th and 14th centuries. Life expectancy was in the low 30s. A newborn baby had about a 50% chance of making it to 5 years old. And can you imagine losing half your kids, and that's the norm? Sanitation as we know it didn't exist. People lived in their own filth. Fleas from infected rats killed half the population of Europe in the 1300s, leaving generation after generation after generation completely traumatized. Famine, pestilence, war as a way of life. And in certain parts of the world today, there are people still living in conditions like that. These are the places untouched by prosperity, by progress, by the material products of human intellect. I gotta tell you, I've always been completely bewildered by the fact that intellect gets a bad rap, especially in the personal development business. There are many spiritual or self-help gurus that seem to have an adversarial relationship with the mind and with the products of the mind, the material things that make our lives better, safer, easier, and more enjoyable. They tend to talk about deeper, more meaningful things, the things of the heart, of love, emotions, of intuition, and spirituality. The subject of thinking really doesn't turn them on at all. Matter of fact, I've been to personal development seminars where the speaker basically said something to the effect that your mind is near useless, can't be trusted. We can't really ever know anything for sure because our minds play tricks on us. I mean, we see this concrete wall as solid, yet science tells us that that wall is actually 99.9% empty space. If you look at concrete under a powerful enough microscope, you're going to see that the deeper truth is that it's empty space. So you see, you obviously can't rely on your senses. You can't depend on your mind. Well, this is a great example of how useful it is to have reason and logic in your 12-category SMART toolkit. Because it's true, if you happen to be a subatomic particle, you'll be able to pass through that wall as if it were empty space. However, if you're a human being and you try running headfirst into that concrete wall, you're going to find out that it's a lot more solid than you might think. So proceed with caution whenever you encounter someone seeking to undermine the value and the importance of the human mind. Because our minds are the reason that we've made it this far as a species. I mean, try living without the products of human intellect for a single day, let alone a year or a lifetime. And there's something you can always count on from the people who disparage intellect. The people up there on that stage who are preaching about the inferiority of the mind are using all the products of the mind to do it. They're saying those things into microphones. They're being broadcast over TV and over the internet. They flew to the seminar on a jet plane. The books that they wrote about the superiority of the heart over the mind were printed on printing presses, shipped in UPS trucks, and sold in all the greatest cities in the world. Well, all those things, microphones, the internet, planes, printing presses, trucks, cities, they're all the products of the human mind. If it weren't for human intellect, we'd all still be living in caves, poking animals with sticks and trying to figure out how to make fire, living in conditions so horrendous that the modern mind literally couldn't fathom it. I was talking to my dear friend and mentor, Dr. Nathaniel Brandon, about this issue one day, this tension that seems to be so common between the heart, the spirit, and the mind. And I was a little agitated. I was saying, how can people be so clueless and so unappreciative that they're not grateful for all the things that make their lives easier and more comfortable and safer and longer? I mean, what's that all about? Are the achievements of the mind really somehow less valuable than the achievements of the heart? Are material values really somehow inferior to spiritual or emotional values? Is the world we can see really less important than the world we can't see? I'll never forget this. Nathaniel paused for a minute, and then he said this to me. He said, let me ask you a question. What's more important, a beautiful, ripe, juicy plum or a bright red wagon? Well, I thought about that for a minute, and it was a strange question, and I said, I really don't know how to answer that question. And he said, well, I do. The answer is it's a stupid question. A plum and a wagon are completely different things with completely different attributes. They serve completely different needs. Neither is inherently superior or inferior to the other. If you're hungry, a plum is better than a wagon in that moment to help with that specific need because you can eat it. However, if you've got to deliver 5 pumpkins to your neighbor's house, a wagon is better than a plum in that moment for that specific need. See, they both serve an important purpose in different respects. Well, it's exactly the same with this issue. The heart, which means your emotional wisdom, your deep intuition, it's an incredible, irreplaceable asset. And we're going to discuss this deeply when we look at the emotional category. Listening and learning from your deepest wisdom inside of you can literally transform your life. You can't have an extraordinary life without valuing and honoring and learning from your emotions. Likewise, spirituality is an incredibly important aspect of the human experience, and we're going to explore that deeply as well. Spirituality addresses deep human needs, such as, who am I really? What am I here for? How can I become the best possible me? And how can I contribute in the best way to others? And intellect addresses deep human needs too, like the need to survive, the need to stay alive, the need to be safe instead of in danger, the need to be well instead of sick, the need to be comfortable instead of miserable. These are all amazing aspects of you. They're incredibly valuable tools in your 12-category SMART toolkit. None of them are better, higher, or more noble than the others. They're different. They're different attributes that address different needs, and there doesn't have to be a war between them. We should celebrate and fully utilize all of those different aspects of ourselves. A refrigerator is a miracle. I couldn't make a refrigerator. If you put me on a desert island and I worked on that project for 100 years, I couldn't figure it out. But I am so grateful and I'm so appreciative that somewhere, someone invented a refrigerator because I can't imagine a life without a refrigerator. None of us could. What about a toilet? Simple sanitation is credited for doubling the human lifespan over the last few hundred years. What about roads? What about medicine and farming and telephones and computers and the internet and about 1 million other products of the human intellect that we take for granted every single day? Take a look around you at what you have. Look at the life you have and think about how much of that stuff you could have figured out on your own. The entire human race is pulled forward by a very small percentage of people who actually think deeply and create the material values that sustain our lives. What amazing gifts we've been given. And I never want to be a person who takes those incredible intellectual achievements for granted. I have an undying respect, admiration, gratitude, and thankfulness for the men and women of the mind and the things they've given me and the quality of life they've made possible for me and the people I love. Your intellectual life is incredibly important. It's the foundation of an extraordinary 12-category smart life. So honor your mental powers. Cultivate them. Carve out time to develop them. Choose to think, and think about everything that's important to you. Use your magnificent, glorious ability to think to manifest everything you want in your life.